Frederick Buechner tells the story of looking through one of his father's old books years after his father had died by suicide. In that book, he found a little handwritten note that said simply, "I'm just no good." That's what shame is. The feeling that you're just no good. Now that's different from guilt. Guilt is, I did this thing, I called somebody a name, or I took something that wasn't mine, or I neglected a friend in need, or something. Yeah, that's a specific act. I did that thing, and that thing was wrong, and I feel remorse for that action. Shame is something really, really different. Shame is the idea that there's just something fundamentally not only wrong with you, but unlovable about you. You're just no good. And why would anybody love you? It's a destructive feeling. And it's a feeling that God never intends for us to experience. I think that that's one of the points of the parable of the weeds among the wheat. A planter sows seeds, wheat grows up, and sure enough, weeds grow in among the wheat. Field hands ask the planter whether or not they should yank out those weeds, and the planter says, no, don't do that, because you can't actually go tearing out the weeds without also destroying the wheat. In other words, God's way of doing things is very realistic. God recognizes, Jesus recognizes, that the world is a mix of things. You know, it's a mixed bag. Everything, every place, every time, every person is a mixed bag, an imperfect gift. But God's way of being is not to eradicate someone or something that is imperfect. In fact, what God says is, what Jesus teaches is, look, let the wheat grow. Do everything in your power to nurture the good. And trust that God is going to be working in that and sort things out in time. Now, I want to be really careful to underscore something. When Jesus says, there will be a harvest at the end, don't let the wheat grow and there will be a harvest at the end, the weeds and the wheat will be separated out. Don't hear that as Jesus saying, well, don't do anything about the troubles of the time, the injustices of the time, the evils of the day. Jesus says this: don't take the path of eradication. Don't take the path of destruction. Don't take the path of blame, because God is not a blamer, and we are the image of God. There are days I look in the mirror and I don't exactly come up with that idea, but I do get that idea from the first chapter of Genesis. The scriptures begin with the idea that our vocation as beings is to lean into the image of God. And God is not a blamer. God is not an eradicator. God does not create in order to destroy. God nurtures and heals and brings forth a harvest of love. I'm going to be really honest. I am not immune to shame. I've struggled with it mightily, especially when I was a much younger man, and I still have bouts of shame, or shame storms, as Brene Brown likes to say. But I also remember what Richard Rohr said, that Jesus came to change our minds about God. You see, Jesus came to heal the broken, to make those who were lame to be able to walk again, to feed the hungry. Jesus was a healer and a nurturer. Jesus wasn't about blaming somebody for being imperfect. Jesus was about loving us so that we could grow toward what we've always been meant to be, the image of God. God is love. We know that from 1 John. We know that from the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. God is love. And for us to live into the image of God that we were created to be means to become loving in our very being. Not someone who simply reacts to something lovable, but someone who enters the world offering always the gift of love as an ambassador of Christ, as St. Paul puts it. I don't really know any better than anybody else how everything in the universe is going to turn out. I don't really know it. And I experience disappointment and frustration and fear and anxiety like any normal human being. But I also experience this. God is in this with me. God is at work in my acts of love. And I believe, because I believe in Jesus' resurrection, I believe that love wins.